Hello, fellow co-creators. Welcome back to Liberatory Love. Happy Mother's Day and the welcoming of the age of the divine feminine and the divine mother being re-welcomed back into our places and spaces, starting with our heart and our bodies and manifesting outward in the way that we treat each other in our relationships, in our communities, in, I believe, our institutions, our nations, and our well-being across nations and around the world. I am in a theme this season around entering into the wild and the wilderness. And yes, I am wearing a dress, but there is an element to walking in this theme of being naked, heart open, not naked in clothing here yet, but naked in spirituality and heart openness. On Seeds of Elegance this spring and summer, there's going to be an array of guests speaking on spiritual evolution and heart opening. Within my one-to-one client work, I've created a series called Into the Wild, where I'm working with you for 4 weeks and 30 days to begin to activate more of that deeply heart-aligned vision. And then here on this platform, on Liberatory Love, I'm going to be moving and working with this theme of, as Lucy Lampy, a beautiful divine feminine coach, spoke to me yesterday in a call, the spiritual wilderness. It was such a beautiful reflection getting this from her and getting this reminder that we choose different paths. We have different paths here on as humans. One is not better than the other, but it is important to follow the path that is ours. And for those of us who've been raised in more traditional religious settings, going on a more spiritual journey that involves embarking on full embodiment, on sexuality, on divine feminine work. Lucy Lampy was also a child of a pastor. There can be a lot of turbulence. And with my work at Liberatory Love, where I seek to create healing at the relationship at the intersection of religion and spirituality, I own that the people who come into this field are going to be on different walks, that I am not here to tell you where to land, but I do need to approach that from the vantage point that is most true for me, which has to do with embracing our wildness, our bodies, our sexuality, our humanity, as well as spiritual guidance that comes from all kinds of places and spaces. So today, I want to read a passage from the Gene Keys. This is a 64 type system that activates different parts of our psyche, our shadows, and the gift within those shadows, and the ultimate spiritual bestowal or spiritual grace that comes when we continue to live into that gift, even when that shadow is present. The Gene Keys are called the art of contemplation. They are a gentle path to wholeness and prosperity, as Richard Rudd, the founder, says. They are about a path of personal self-illumination and allowing the world around us to be a mirror that is teaching us about what it is that we are here to evolve and grow in on a deeply internal level that will ultimately manifest outward. So the Gene Key of 22 is all about grace and divine feminine and the opening of the heart. And if you go more in depth in this key, it also has a deep reflection on the New Testament, on the book of Revelation, on the 7 seals that are talked about in the book of Revelation in the Bible, and these epochs and transitions that we would move through as humans. So while oftentimes pursuing a more divine feminine path is pitted against Christianity, I just want to offer for those of you who are deep Christ lovers a consideration that Christ himself was a deeply feminine figure, was bringing Christ consciousness, which you might not think of, use that frame, but you can read more in the book, The Course on Miracles, A Course on Miracles, for looking at Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is about ultimately a more feminine way of connecting to life. He disrupted. I shared this with someone this week, and it was interesting to have her not know this information. I'm so indoctrinated with Christianity that it's my I tend to think most people know these things, but Christianity or Christ was rejected by the Jews. Christ was not received. He was not obeying the laws. He was not the person that was thought to be the Messiah. He was not living the way that they thought a king would be living. And this, whether or not you have a relationship to this historical and spiritual figure, this is something to consider and really look at. Right now, Christianity is used in very horrific ways to, yield power in our society. But what was the spirit of Christ? What was the spirit of Christ bringing? And Gene Key 22 even is a reflection on that, and it is a reflection, in my opinion, on the transition and change that we are going through as people. And I think other than that, I would just say, yeah, listen with an open heart to this passage and allow yourself to consider what might be for you here and release the rest. Remember, we are going to be moving this season, May through October, in this channel and in this space on Liberatory Love. We are going to be moving with the energy of the wilderness and the wild. And so if you are staying attuned with these videos, if you're coming onto my lives, if you're choosing to do personal work or group work, there is going to be an embracing of our shadow, of our darkness, and there is going to be a moving with it, and there's going to be an exploration of the unknown and the void in a new way. So the best way to set us up for that is to begin to just invite and invoke your own highest alignment here. Light into your field. You can imagine clearing light coming through the crown of the head, all the way down the spine to the toes. And we invite only what is for your highest and best, your love and your alignment. With that, this is Gene Key 22, the way of graciousness. The shadow in this gift, or in this gene key, is dishonor. The gift is graciousness. And then the city, which is the spiritual essence, is grace. The transformational way of the 22nd gene key. Oh, this is from the book, The 64 Ways, Personal Contemplations on the Gene Keys. The transformational way of the 22nd gene key moves from dishonor to grace, and it's the way of graciousness. This is written by Richard Rudd. Whenever I approach this 22nd gene key now, I always feel a little in awe and perhaps a little daunted. Like the 55th gene key, which is all about freedom and is about the path of freedom from victimization to freedom that humans are on, it completely surprised me when I wrote it out. All this amazing and frankly mysterious out there knowledge just came pouring out. I never intended the gene keys to be very esoteric, but this 22nd gene key definitely took them in a new direction. That's what I love about the art of contemplation. You never know what insights will come or when. You just have to begin. And I'll just say to this phrase, you can look up Richard Rudd talking about his life, but he essentially had a vision, a download, and he had an understanding energetically of what the gene keys were, but it took him years to actually sit with them and actually put words to them in ways that were more comprehensible. Having said all that, I have a feeling that the transformational way is going to be all practicality, because that's what the divine feminine is about. And this 22nd gene key is the real divine feminine. I say the real because I think the divine feminine has been misrepresented by the new age movement. It's not about ladies in flowing robes wafting around campfires. It's also not about some kind of pro-women social revolution either. I don't have a problem with either of these things, but they're not what I understand to be the divine feminine. Let's unpack this gene key and maybe see what it's really about, at least from the point of view of this knowledge. Let's begin with the shadow of dishonor. What does it mean to dishonor someone? What does it mean to dishonor ourselves? Those two questions are ever connected. When we look at the dilemma of this gene key, we get the answer. It's all about accountability. Life is about learning to be accountable for one's own state. Now, that sounds easy, but it really is a huge challenge for humans. It's a challenge because at the shadow frequency, we always revert to a victim stance. frequency, meaning the energetic, the underlying state that we're in, and then shadow, meaning that darker frequency. We tend to go back into being a victim. Everything is happening to me. If we don't feel comfortable, we immediately look for a reason. Maybe we blame the weather. I'm English, Richard saying this. Remember, we always blame the weather, but more often we blame another person. We don't take responsibility for our state. We look for a reason. I have been queen of this. If you're someone who has beef with me, it's because I have blamed you for my problems. The point is that we aren't comfortable being uncomfortable. We deflect our awareness in some way out of the present moment. Why is it so damn hard to remain in the present? Why do all these teachers and mystics keep banging on about being in the now? Why can't they just leave us alone? Well, they're right. Although I sometimes wonder how helpful it is to talk about being in the now or not being in the now. The problem can be that we then try and be in the now, which can end up interfering with our naturally occurring shadow patterns. I know this might sound weird, but it's better to be screwed up and aware than perfect and pretending to be aware. Dishonor runs deep. We dishonor ourselves every time we don't accept the way we feel or behave. When I say accept, I don't mean morally accept. There are things we do sometimes that really are not morally acceptable, but at a deeper level, we can still accept them. It doesn't mean make them okay, but at least it's honest. In the beginning, we just have to see who we are. All transformation begins with accountability. We have to accept our shadows. So already you can kind of feel, if you've been someone who's been in a more religious environment, spiritual environment, or personal development environment, you most likely have sought to deny the anger that you're feeling, the lack of presence that you're feeling, negativity that you're feeling, because of the desire to be perceived as optimistic. And this is such a fine balance because we both want to align our thoughts to the reality that we want. We both want to be giving love to the people we care about. And the shadow parts of us, the part that wants to destroy, to hurt, to be violent, to be greedy, to be angry, to be a victim and think that everything is against us, those parts actually need to be felt, and they won't leave us if we don't. They will have more control if we don't allow them to be felt. When we think about dishonor, we usually think about it in terms of how we might behave towards others or how others behave towards us. Dishonor is always about us first. We dishonor ourselves when we blame anything for anything because there's no fault. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We just have to be honest about it. The 22nd gene key is all about human suffering. It explores the very roots of human suffering. In the Venus sequence, which is about opening our heart, which is a kind of practical extension of this 22nd gene key, there are 6 essential human wound patterns: repression, denial, shame, rejection, guilt, and separation. None of them are wrong. We manifest them a great deal in our lives. Some of us lean more strongly towards certain ones than others. That's the cosmic deal, but they aren't wrong. They're the raw material for our transformation. These 6 wound patterns are also the 6 patterns that the 7 seals talked about in the book of Revelation are said to be here to help break, and they're all contained within this 22nd gene key. Let's take guilt, for example. Is it wrong to feel guilty? We're often told it is, but what if we've done something terrible? Perhaps that guilt is a natural part of our process. Perhaps it is right. The same is true of shame. We're told we need never be ashamed. Well, perhaps we ought to be ashamed sometimes. Perhaps if we harmed another person, then we ought to feel some shame. Perhaps we dishonor our nature if we don't allow ourselves to feel that shame. Again, the point is that all feelings are journeys. Our suffering is a journey. We have to begin with the knowing that we must honor it. We must even honor dishonor at some level. The word accountability is a funny one because it always makes me think of little men in suits and glasses working out numbers, accountants. It's like that in a way. We have to see the numbers for what they are, just numbers. Our suffering is like that. Our issues are like that. They're just what they are. Imagine if every taxi we had to do a tax return for all our transgressions. That's really taxing. We just have to be honest with our own nature. This honoring of the pattern itself is what begins the process of transformation. I like to think about here, since he's talking about accounting, also like if you have I've been on a journey with money over the years. And so I've witnessed my heart transform from opening the bank account and allowing that number to have a hold on how I view myself to being able to say, okay, it is just fact. This is where we're at. Where do we want to be? What else is possible? But when I would open the account and bring back all the stories about how awful I am and how bad I am at managing money and how incapable I likely am at building a business and how like me as a woman never learned this and woe is me and no one taught me, like I would freeze versus starting to actually feel that. Woe is me. Everything is so sad. It's so hard. I hate doing this. No one taught me. I'm never going to figure it out. I'll always be stuck. I feel so limited. I feel so powerless. When you can actually voice it, you can laugh at it. You can hear it. You can see and feel that you're bigger than that. But repressing that then keeps you at a standstill. As someone who works in trauma healing work, there is actual support we sometimes need to be able to release and feel some of these holds. But it is important to acknowledge you are not bad or wrong for feeling this repression, denial, shame, rejection, guilt, and separation. And actually, if you give it some space, if you let it have a voice, maybe in a voice that's a little different than yours, you will start to feel how it is not the most authentic you, but it does get to exist. It is living there. It wants to be played out. It wants to be honored. The programming partner, so each of the gene keys has there, since the gene keys are set up in a circle, the opposite gene key across the circle is considered its programming partner, and you can think of it as kind of an infinity loop reinforcing. So the shadows both drag each other down, and the gifts both take each other up. So when we're in a negative state, we spiral down, and when we're in a evolving state, we start spiraling up. And the shadow, it can just be very powerful to look at the interrelationship of these things. So the partner of the 22 is the 47, the shadow of oppression. So remember, the 22 shadow is dishonor, and then its partner is oppression. So if you think of oppression as the pushing down or uh, intentional injustice toward the feminine in us or toward certain beings and bodies on the earth, that is a direct manifestation of dishonor inherently within ourselves. This puts a different lens on patriarchy, on sexism, on racism, on the way that our exploitative economy works. It is not just because it's not just oppression manifested without a root. The root of oppression is interconnected with the root of dishonor. So if we want to overcome oppression, we also need to overcome dishonor, including the dishonor of ourselves. And then again, we think we want to push away our shadow parts. But what happens if we actually start to honor the darker parts of ourself that also exist? The more we honor the dark, the more we honor can live from more of the light and the depth that we seek. And then the more we can actually have the tools to shift these patterns that are manifested within and without. So the shadow of oppression, our issues, our sacred wounds, our path to awakening. It either oppresses us or it frees us. It's one or the other. Are we going to do our accounts or try and duck the tax man? Will we honor the process of dishonor the wound we carry by avoiding it? No, I don't feel violent. I'm never violent. I don't feel angry. I'm never angry, you know? Or can we start to embrace, no, there is violence in my system. There is anger in my system. There is deep victimization and sadness and sorrow and despair in my system. I do feel like God abandoned me. I do feel like I'm all alone out here. I do feel like no one loves me. What happens when that gets to be honored? Will we honor the process or dishonor the wound we carry by avoiding it? See the difference? It's honoring the process too, because if you actually feel that, you won't get stuck there. We don't tend to feel that because we think we'll get stuck. But if we could trust that all emotion and energy moves, emotion is energy in motion. then what we also would want to honor is not just that thing, but the movement and transmutation and alchemization of that thing, which is where we're going to get with the 47 because the gift is transmutation. Will we honor the process or dishonor the wound we carry by avoiding it? It cries out over and over for our attention and our awareness. We have to learn to let it in. Just honesty, self-honesty. That's all that's needed. To not hide from the true numbers inside us or run or shrink our own program. Just face it, deal with it, be accountable for our behavior, our feelings, our thoughts, our self-judgments. Then we have a chance of letting go of these self-judgments. It's a process of awareness. It's simple. Contemplation really helps us see these things because it gives us the space, the pause necessary to see the issue at hand. If we don't stop and look, how will we ever see the pattern? Let's think about this. We're in a relationship, our partner's really feeling down, and they're projecting some of their state onto us the way we often do. We get defensive and reactive because it's an injustice. It's nothing to do with us, and we know it. But still, we aren't being accountable. If we knew it wasn't our stuff, then we wouldn't be defensive or reactive. We would be compassionate, or at the very least, we might feel a bit sad for them, but we wouldn't get tangled up in their state. I can't believe that you misplaced the keys. What's wrong with you? You misplaced the keys. So an example of this is if you can feel that and you know, this is not about me. They're mad. I know that they're mad at their mom who would misplace everything and they're projecting that onto me. I'm not their mother. I'm not your mother. But if we were actually in a more compassionate state, what this is saying is we would actually have compassion in that moment rather than take it personally. Again, this is artistry, this is work. We're not going to do this overnight, but can you feel how to actually start to break patterns together as humans, we need this level quality of self accountability? It's not so easy to account for oneself because our own issues get tangled up with the issues of others. This is the dilemma. This is what this Venus sequence, the heart work, is about. It teaches us the practical art of emotional accountancy. Isn't that hilarious? These are my expenses, those are yours. Then we get to work out if we're making any profit. And profit is what happens when the 22 gift comes into play. The 22nd gift is just fantastic. Graciousness. It'll save our life. It'll save anyone in any situation, anywhere. It's so beautiful and practical and simple. It's graciousness. It's something of a lost quality. People often say things, oh, okay. It happens, it's an element of graciousness. The element of graciousness is all about how we treat ourselves and others. Graciousness isn't just politeness or courtesy, although it may contain both of those qualities. It's a whole cocktail of noble qualities. It's also very refined and often very subtle. It's an attitude carried in our aura, which is our energy field, and it's rooted in a deep reverence for all of life. So again, the gift is always contrasting the shadow. So the shadow's dishonor. And now we're talking about this reverence for life. Graciousness doesn't really have anything to do with upbringing, although it can certainly be imbued from a parent or peer when we're young. Gracious people are quite rare in the world. Have a think about it and see if you can bring someone to mind who's truly gracious. That's someone worthy of contemplation. Graciousness stems from our ability to be accountable. When we're accountable for our own aura, our own chemistry, our own emotions, then we move in such a clean way through the world. All our accounts are settled. Our money is laundered. Okay, enough with the money metaphors. It takes time to get clean in this way. We have to know the patterns of our own wounding. We have to disentangle our reactions from those of others. This is what contemplation does. It gives us the space to see what's really going on around us on the emotional level. I want to be clear here. This is all about the emotions. The 22nd gene key is about a great emotional evolve. The great word for this gift is soul. It's the gift of graciousness and it's the gift of soul. Soul is when we begin to emanate the quality of our essence. It's a refining of our emotions. At the shadow frequency, emotions are nothing but turbulence. They buffet around us and disturb us so deeply so much of the time. We're caught in the battle between pleasure and pain. When our soul shines out, we even begin to let go of the need for pleasure. We become grateful for whatever life brings. So, this passage is kind of transporting us to consider the essence beneath the emotion. I am still on a journey with navigating what an exploration as part of my philosophical work, what emotions are, because they are teachers, they carry wisdom, they are also embodied. But what this passage is also offering is the deeper spiritual or soulful base beneath these emotions. And I like to think of this as the core of Earth and all the climates on Earth. The core of Earth does not make it less real that there's ice in one part of the Earth and that there's sand in another. It doesn't make it less real that there's ocean and there's dry desert. Those places exist and they are real. Emotional states are real. We don't need to say, stop being sad and just be happy. That's like telling somebody who's standing inside of the ice, an ice box, a cryo machine to warm up. No, if you are in the desert, you might need water in that. You might not might, you need water in that desert to survive. You need different tools in that climate. If you just had a miscarriage, if you just gave birth, if you just witnessed death, the emotional state you're in is going to be different, and that gets to be honored. You are experiencing a climate, an emotional climate that gets to exist because this is the world that we came to. And just like beneath those climates is still beneath or surrounding, however you want to perceive it, there's still the core of Earth. There is still Earth herself, who is big enough to hold all of those climates. Your soul is actually big enough to hold all of these emotional experiences and traverse them and be on the journey. Okay. So we begin when we are in touch with the soul essence or this earth essence, we become, from my vantage point, we are able to begin to experience gratitude for what is happening. This shifted for me in my own business development journey from a state of gratification based on the result that I would produce, that I thought I would produce, help contribute to, because the result is always someone else too. But from that or from a monetary income to the recognition that everything is happening for me and I'm actually learning about becoming that earth that can hold a bigger climate. This is also how I think about relationship shifts. We want to build relationship containers that have such deep sovereignty and safety that our shadow and light can be worked with and evolved with. When we feel grateful to life, okay, so that's another quality inherent in graciousness, gratitude. When we feel grateful to life, it's because we're so aware of death and so our priorities are transformed. As we let go of pleasure, we also let go of pain. The two are inextricably linked. And as a tantric coach and sexuality coach who supports people to experience more pleasure, this was the fundamental principle we were also taught to be engaged in the mystery of life and no longer be in a state where we are avoiding pain and chasing pleasure as the foundation for actually welcoming more pleasure in our life. The two are inextricably linked. It's not as though they go away. They don't. Their delightful musical figure continues, but we don't shuttle desperately from one to the other. We become accepting of life and its rhythms. We're no longer a victim of the pleasure-pain cycle. So we rise up and our frequency lifts us. Again, the pleasure and pain cycle is not ending. Pleasure is not overriding pain. We are actually becoming deep enough to hold it. We feel equanimous, another lovely word. This equanimity is often associated with Buddhism, and as a earth-based, more feminine being, I've been on a journey to both embrace the power of meditation and Buddhist thought and be the wild woman that I am and seek to see what does that look like and mean when I'm fully emotional energetic, electric being. You see how many wonderful words are hiding in this gift. To live with equanimity is to live life lightly, but at the same time deeply. It means we pay attention, and it involves having an unquenchable inner calm. This gene key is special as it becomes purified. It is, after all, the master key and the highest teaching in all the gene keys, a transmission known as the seven seals. The 22nd gene key is the seventh seal. So just as this key talked about 6 wounds that we all carry, repression, denial, shame, rejection, guilt, and separation, the gene key system sets up 6 different keys that help us break these patterns. And then the 22nd key of grace and graciousness is the 7th one that kind of enwraps all of these. The 22nd gene key is a 7th seal. It contains the codes for the healing of all humanity's wounds. We can read about it in the 22nd gene key, the larger book. Graciousness is the process of bringing grace into form. It invites grace. Graciousness doesn't exist without challenges. So again, I want to speak to this part with graciousness, bringing grace into form. I might not feel grace for someone who just hurt me, but by showing graciousness to them, I'm starting to create, I'm starting to operate in me from that earth-based being who can hold this climate, and their grace can actually make its appearance. This is my interpretation. Graciousness doesn't exist without challenges. It thrives on challenges. Life will go on testing our graciousness. It needs to be tested so that we can refine it. How graciously do we treat ourselves? How graciously do we treat others? I think this is so important as well for those of us who are in the more new age space, who are into manifestation. Manifestation sometimes gets construed with ease in the form of things happening in the way you want them to happen. But if you think of your higher self or your deepest truth seeking to prepare you for what you deeply desire, would your deepest truth be giving you things that are what you want right now? Did your 5-year-old want, if you were to give everything to your 5-year-old what she wanted, would you like that life? Like most of us, I'm going to say, are no. And so we get to start taking the perspective on who we are as I don't even fully know what I want and need. And I'm choosing to speak into my highest harmony with truth. And I welcome the experiences that prepare me for that. And if you feel like I have no idea why this experience would happen or what this experience is preparing me for, graciousness is always a place to go. At the very least, graciousness to yourself, graciousness to another. It doesn't mean we have to be like everyone, but it does mean that we allow them to be who they are. Graciousness carries a kind of cosmic kindness inside it. When we're gracious, we often hold back from saying something that might stir others up. Again, it's not that we become holy when we manifest graciousness. We're still as human as anyone else, but we know how to treat people. We treat them with kindness. We don't allow our own issues to get tangled up with them. When we stop judging ourselves, then we no longer judge others. Key line here. As we enter deeper into contemplation of our own issues, our agendas, and our wounds, so we learn how to be gracious. We learn to be careful without being fearful, how to be warm without being overbearing, how to be candid without being cruel. It's a balancing act in the gift frequency. It's a transformational field in which we're steadily refined. And it's all because we learn to stop dishonoring ourselves at the very deepest level. It truly took meeting a person who had such a big heart for me, for this key to come into my world, because I could see how deeply I desired him to be the things that I was seeking. And rather than having graciousness, I felt judged where I perceived that he was judging me, and I felt judgmental of him for not being the things that I wanted and needed. And yet here was a person who I knew was not intentionally seeking to harm me. And I was forced to actually face the quality of self-judgment that I have about myself, both on the shadowy parts of myself and on the depth breath, power, and things that I seek. And it was through the disentanglement of my need for him to change that I stepped into graciousness. And it had to be, and still is in my process right now, a graciousness toward me because of the quality of emotion. Your emotion will teach you whether you're prepared. This is also something that gets taught in Buddhist meditation and the metta meditation, whether you're at a place where you have the ability to ho'oponopono, forgive and love the person out there, to give love to the person out there, or if it feels that you do not have the space for that, this is a sign and a reminder that you are the one who needs that graciousness. You are the one who needs that ho'oponopono forgiveness. I love you. I'm sorry. Thank you. You are the one who needs that attention and care. And when that starts to get filled up from you, then you can share it with that other person. But you get to, part of the work I do with liberatory love is give you the space to be in that. This is a turnaround on forgiveness of you need to be in a state of being prepared or ready to forgive another, to let's actually be with that shadow. Let's honor the desire not to forgive, the desire of anger or hurt or experienced victimization from actually being a victim. And then let's ask, what else is there? When that has the safety to be felt, when you have the safety to really say, I did not deserve that. I did not deserve that physical abuse. I did not deserve that emotional abuse. I deserve better. And you can feel that, then that starts to become a graciousness that you give to you. The charge on the other person begins to shift, and the decisions and the choices you make also shift. And that's why this talks about it being a field where we're steadily refined. This is not a one and done process. This is a continuous resurrection. This is Christ's message was never meant to be, in my vantage point, and for people who really tap into the energy of forgiveness, it's not about a one and done deal, even though obviously crucifixion is a one-time act. But it is about saying yes to and welcoming in that connection in the heart over and over and over and over. Christ's prayer was, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do, when he was on the cross. Christ's prayer the night before was, if there's any other way, please let there be another way. And I love these two prayers. I really work with and move with in my life. Think of how feminine those prayers are. If there's another way, let there be. I'm surrendered. I am surrendered to this. And it's emotional, it's passionate, it's honest. That is Christ honoring the humanity of himself. And then forgive them, they know not what they do, is the compassion and the grace. Compassion for self, then compassion for others. And then rebirth. So here comes the city, the spiritual essence of grace. So from this state of refinement, thus flows the font of the divine feminine. It really is about owning our own stuff. It's about treating oneself and others with dignity, no matter how they behave. I hope this is practical for all who are listening. I'm describing a process that we enter into when we contemplate our lives at this deep level. Whether we use the gene keys or not, doesn't matter. We can forget all of this and just remember graciousness. It's the greatest teaching I know. We may well be wondering, what has all this got to do with the divine feminine? The answer is that it's all about how we treat each other. There are relationship teachers out there who advocate that we express all our emotions all the time because we came out of an emotionally repressed generation who experienced a terrible world war. We've reacted and gone so far in the other direction. That's normal and the way of things, but the next generation will need to find the balance between clear and appropriate emotional expression and basic human decency. We don't want to be putting our emotions onto someone else all the time. It's messy. It turns into soup. Graciousness leads to grace. And that one is really something that we're navigating. Those of us who are creating spaciousness for more of our emotion and creating relationships where more emotion can be processed. It doesn't mean that one partner holds it all. It doesn't mean one friend holds it all. It doesn't even mean that you in every moment need to hold it all, in my vantage point. I'm very big with liberatory love and building out your field of safety for yourself. So in the same way that if you loved a woman or a person, but especially if you're seeking intimacy with a female body, which operates different than a male body, you want to continue to create that safety for the body to open. You with yourself are creating that emotional safety. And it doesn't help to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're not ready right here, right now. Can't you just get turned on and be ready to go? No. And why do we do that emotionally? As soon as we're ready to start being emotionally expressive, we look at ourselves and we're like, oh my gosh, you're not somatically aware. Oh my gosh, you're not willing to express. Oh my gosh, you're not willing to say what you want to say. Oh, you don't know your own emotions. Oh, you can't feel. I have been in this side, so I ask for forgiveness for all who I have imposed that upon. But you, that comes from me not being patient with myself, my own demanding dominator. And this is what we get to bring to ourselves. This is the gift we get to bring to ourselves to begin to be gracious in the emotional opening with ourselves and then with another. And then also learn that not everything needs to be said all at once either. Maybe it is all bursting out of you. What is going to be the process where you start to release that? In my vantage point, there are relationships at times that can hold that. But for me, who's been going through a massive transition over 2 years, it is nature, it is animals who have helped me because they are the elements, they are the core, they are the climate of the earth, they are the emotions of the earth, they are the representations of different emotional states on the earth. So maybe a human is not prepared or ready to listen to hear me roar, but the Lion Kingdom can take it. Maybe someone else doesn't want to see the tsunami that's coming through, but the ocean knows what that's like. So this is why for me, I really do work with the energy of earth and support people to find that depth. And maybe you really do need to voice what you're going through to another person because you haven't had any of that safety. But regardless, we are going to have to lean into more, in my vantage point, more of who we are as we come into these states of expression because it's so unfamiliar. The humans around us, if you're in a process right now where you're coming into emotional expression, you might be getting a lot of mirrors back of fear because if someone else doesn't have a practice for that yet, it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, you're bringing a flood to me, you're bringing a fire to me, you're bringing the wind to me, you're bringing the earth to me. I don't know how to hold that because I'm not holding it in myself. And if you already feel insecure about that, you might receive that as you're too much again, as opposed to that this is an earth being born and uncovered through you, and that there is more spaces and ways for that to come out through breath, through body, through somatic, through nature. If you are interested in being held in that way, liberatory love is a beautiful space to begin to have someone else hold you in that. Okay, so graciousness leads to grace. One more thing before we dive into grace is that I don't want us to get the notion of graciousness as this kind of breakfast at Tiffany's thing where we're all squeaky clean and our behavior and allocation is all airbrushed. True graciousness can be gritty. It can be rough around the edges. It can be this old elmwood floor I've just put into my house. We've been renovating and I found this beautiful old English elm all weathered and rough with the elements. Most people would just plan it right down and have it all be perfect. It does look beautiful like that, but we just gave it a light sanding and then put it down. You can see all the weaker weather marks and saw marks, but it's still soft to the touch. Graciousness is like that floor. It's honest. It has a soft touch. It carries a story with depth and honor, but it isn't perfect. It's just human. So to grace, what is grace? Well, that can be answered in many ways as there are stars in the night sky. Here's my spontaneous answer. I'm thinking of the poem of William Wordsworth, a famous 18th century poet. He was essentially a nature poet, and his words, like his name, carry with them the beauty of man's interaction with nature at its highest level. In many of his poems, he describes moments of a kind of celestial transport where he's just swept away by some natural phenomenon. Maybe it's a storm in the hills or rowing across a lake in the dead of night and listening to the owls hooting. He calls these moments of our life spots of time, moments that lift us up when we've fallen. These are moments of grace. We all experience such spots of time. We've all felt the soft touch of grace in our lives. It's worth spending some time in our contemplation, just calling back those moments and luxuriating in them. There are markers of grace. So let's just take a moment here and just breathe and remember these moments of grace. These moments, I've been having a couple of days in the backyard now where I just let the sun pour on my face and just breathe it in. See if you can remember a moment with nature, with yourself, where you really let yourself receive. Just having gratitude for that and committing right now to a moment every day for the next 7 days where you will allow that openness for spontaneity, that openness for boredom, that openness to take a breath, even if you have back to back to back commitments. Just this morning, while running around the hills here in Devon, shortly after dawn, I encountered a little bird, a goldcrest. It was just sitting on the hedgerow before me. It stopped me dead in my tracks. It's a rare little bird, a tiny thing, but with this incredible gold sash on its head. It gave me one of those magical pauses. Once it had flitted away, I was off again, but I carried it with me, that little moment of grace, and now here it is embedded forever in this story, in this dream key. Sometimes grace falls on us and we can't predict when it'll occur. We can't make it happen, but we can prepare the ground through the way we deal with difficulties with graciousness. We have this term, a fall from grace. It's poignant because grace is often about how we deal with the shadow, about how we deal with our mistakes. It all comes back to accountability. We have to deal with our falls as cleanly and openly as possible. Grace is buried in every shadow. It almost teases us to take the leap and behave in a new way instead of being sucked back into the old behaviors. I also want to speak here as someone who is dedicated to collective transformation at Liberatory Love, that this is going to be essential as we view ourselves in a collective story. This is so multifaceted and so multidimensional and not on any one of us to conceptualize, but we do want to begin to take collective account for the collectives we belong to, be it our nation, our community, our family, our religion, etc., but really the collective, first and foremost, being to our relation to all things and to all people, and witness the shadows, honor where we are at now, and allow that to pave the path for the vision of greater nonviolence, peace, knowing, freedom. Sometimes grace hits a whole gene pool. Okay. And this one he goes into talk. I'll speak it in case it brings a memory in any of your countries. Like here in the UK in 2012, when we hosted the Olympics, it was an incredible atmosphere in which so many of our athletes did so well, winning so many gold medals. It lifted the whole country into another plane, especially since we've never been a great sporting realm like Russia, the US, or China. It gave us a taste of the higher frequencies as a collective. It was a grace that occurred. You could walk through London and everyone would smile and talk openly. That might be normal where you live, but in London, it's extraordinary. It was a high. Of course, that's just a symbol. Grace comes as a tribute. It's a gift given to us to open us to another possibility. These moments aren't to be missed. They're to be savored and allowed to mature inside us. They're the stepping stones for a higher life. Grace can mean many things to many people, but it's also the same for all people. There are states of being that transcend suffering. That's the ultimate meaning of grace. Those states may one day become more readily available to us. And if and when they do, it'll likely be because something inside us mutates to allow us to receive the higher frequencies on a permanent basis. We have to change, but how and when is not in our hands. We can't even say it's for certain. But given that grace exists in the first place, it seems inevitable. Almost done, and then I'll comment on that part. So in our lives, let our contemplation touch upon grace on those spots of time that come every now and then. The more we pause and listen, the more grateful and gracious our spirit becomes, the more of those experiences we'll have. One day will just vanish, evanesce into those higher initiations spoken of in the 22nd city. I hope this gene key strikes a chord with you somewhere deep within. I hope you can grasp a little of what it meant by the divine feminine, the spirit of grace. It's practical, unpalpable, not numinous, but always available to the one who loves deeply enough. You know, I read that whole passage just to get to one part, and it wasn't even in there. It's in an audio recording of this where he speaks it, but it's not in the written. But I want to speak to the mutation side. It might sound a little strange to think of mutation, but I want you to remember a moment in your life where you truly felt like you could not forgive someone or you could not love someone through something, and you did. And it could have been yourself as well. And that new state that was birthed, and how challenging it is to actually see it the other way now. To me, this is what mutation is about. There is also, metaphysically speaking, philosophies on our DNA physically changing. But that's not even metaphysical, that's literal. Our DNA does change. But on an emotional level, you can think of it as that, how you literally can't see it another way. You could imagine that even how when you're in middle school and you're first going through puberty and you're feeling the world shift. I had one of my nephews describe how it felt like everything is being planned now. He was like, I miss being a child. I miss how life felt so mysterious, so exciting. And now it's feeling like every single step is planned. Where's the magic of life? And I was like, woo, I'm double this kid's age and I am asking the same question. And and what I offered him was that the invitation magic is always there, but we have to ask for it. We have to pay attention to it. And when you are in that middle school moment, though, in that first stages of puberty, there's like, will life ever be the same again? And it's both true that it won't. There's that sadness, there's that sorrow, there's that breaking out of childhood. But at the same time, it's also true that there's new dimensions of play that get to be possible as an adult that you might never have perceived. And that there's new dimensions of intellect that can actually, when fused with the heart, open up whole new ways of living and being. If you're going to get married and you have that sorrow or loss of, I'm going to lose this individual side that I had, it's both a true sorrow, but there's also a stepping into a new portal, a new relation with the quality of trust that can be built with another human who you are co-creating with on the earth out of true love, respect, and honor. And mutation is, in my opinion, that new being that comes forth, that new knowledge that comes forth, that you then no longer can even remember the old way. You can't see the dark without thinking about the light. You can't see the night without knowing the sun will rise. At first, you don't know. The first dark night your soul goes through, you genuinely don't know if you will make it through. And then when you do, your first heartbreak, you don't know if you're going to make it through. You don't know that you're going to love again. I used to always tell, I remember my first heartbreak telling my sister's friend, you know, I will never love like this. There will never be anything like this again. And he said, why do you think that? I was 18 and I said, I just know this was amazing. This opened me. I'll never be innocent again in this way. I'll never have not known what this was. And he just encouraged me to stay open. And I laugh at that because it was true. I had an understanding. Yes, there would never be a virgin Libby again. There would never be a version who had not opened her heart in that way. But at the same time, I have experienced that total innocence and recreation of myself in loves that are in extraordinary different qualities of richness. And so this is part of the invitation when we are saying yes to grace, and especially saying yes to grace as people who are stepping into greater sovereignty. We collectively are, I believe, trapped a bit in a state of consciousness that believes that the leadership that exists on the earth now is the best that it gets. The governance that we see now, the presidencies, the way that things are organized is it. This is not it. This is not it. We are in adolescence now, to pull from another spiritual teaching. I love the Baha'i writings. We are in a stage of adolescence now. We are in a stage now that is a type of puberty as a human species. So it's normal to feel like it's painful. It's normal to feel like I don't see another way out. It's normal to look around and have skepticism and mistrust at everyone. And if you are a person watching this, listening to this, meditating on these themes of personal and collective liberation, what other guidance is being offered to you, not just from the intellectual mind, but from the heart, from the gut, from visions and dreams, from embodied knowing? What other invitations are coming your way that your deeper intelligence, like the deeper intelligence of the earth being able to hold the climates, is asking you to examine? Happy Mother's Day. Happy Divine Mother. Happy invitation into reparenting yourself and allowing this earth and this cosmos to reparent you. You are loved. You are love, and you are not alone on this journey.